But the fact that you're bringing in children from the beginning of that relationship, it's a step family, it's blended. Because some people will say, "Oh, she's being entitled. How would she expect that the man should pay for the son's that her son's school fees? After all, he has his own biological son. Where is the boy's father?"
Ndewono, Ekabo, Sanu. Thank you for joining us. So, social media has been abuzz with the story about a couple squabble. What's the squabble, you ask? Well, I'm about to tell you. So, apparently, there's a case of a husband who just told his wife that he doesn't have enough money to send both his biological son and stepson to private school. So he'll be choosing to send only his biological son to the private school. The lady is the biological mother of both boys and can't fathom the words coming out of her husband's mouth. So that means that the man married a single mother and then they had a child together after, the stepson. So, especially when he says the stepson still has a father who is alive, and why can't the father contribute, or why can't his wife pay for the private school if she's so inclined for the stepson to go to school? Joining me to have a rounded conversation on blended families with this story as the context is Onyi Allan, who is a strategic business leader, life and relationship coach, and a blended family advocate. Onyi brings extensive leadership and business expertise. She's also the founder and CEO of Onyi Allan, a coaching brand dedicated to helping individuals, women, and blended families build emotionally intelligent, resilient, and deeply connected relationships. Onyi, welcome to the show. Oh,
Thank you, Abby.
hey. See, I had to
Thank
chase
you.
her
Good to have
down
you
to
here.
come. I had to chase her down because, in fact, you people will understand why I had to chase her down. By the time we're done with this, you tell me thank you. So let's start. When you first heard this story, what stands out to you the most? Is it the financial decision or the emotional message behind it?
Okay, Abby, thank you so much for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here and to do this with you. I know that we've tried to do it, a couple of times, find the dates, but with kind of schedules we both have. It's not just us, the kind of schedules we both have. It's difficult, to get it time. So I'm glad that we're eventually doing this. Like you rightly said, I'm a blended family advocate. I like to call myself a blended family coach, which is how I like to identify instead of a general life and relationship coach. And I like to say that that niche found me, right? I didn't go looking for it because of my own lived experience and still living experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm married, I have a wonderful husband, and I'm stepmom to two very adorable children, and we have such a great relationship. But did it get there overnight? No. No, there was work, that was done before we got to the place that we got to as a family. And I guess that's the myth about blended families. Some people just think it's automatic, like first families or primary families. People just think, okay, because we love each other, love is enough. And, we're merging these families together and, it should just be automatic. So if we go back to what even a blended family is, it's the fact that that's a single mom, right? Someone has had a child before marriage or with a previous partner and coming together to do life and relationship with somebody else. Or there's the man that had the child and then she's getting married and automatically she's a stepmom. Or they both have children and they're coming together and
Yeah.
it's like step children, and stepmom, stepdad, and then their own biological children also comes in sometimes.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like these dynamics that you've described, is the man is the stepdad, right? So she came in with her
A
own
son
child.
already, yes.
Exactly. And then so the man is automatically a stepdad, and then they have a child together, another
Mhm.
son. And so she's both a biological mom, we call them bio moms. So she's both a
Yeah.
bio mom and a stepmom. But the dad is also sorry, she's both a bio mom. She's no, she's a bio mom twice.
Twice. Yes.
She's the bio mom to the child she had with the
The
other
previous
partner, and the
partner.
bio mom to the child she has with this new partner. But the dad is a stepdad,
Mm-hmm.
and that's her partner is a stepdad and a bio dad.
Yes.
So the dynamics is different in the sense that she's bio mom to two, he's bio dad to one, stepdad to one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that dynamics, and this is what makes a blended family very complex
Mm-hmm.
because you're bringing in, children from the beginning. That's what makes it step. Because if it was just two of you, previous relationships, it's not step, it's X, and then you're coming to start something new. But the fact that you're bringing in children from the beginning of that relationship, it's a step family, it's blended. And like I said, that's why I chose to be a step family advocate because of the dynamics, because of how difficult it is, because I realized when I became a stepmom myself that these things are not automatic. It's a journey, right? There are sacrifices, there
True.
are commitments to be made, there are deep conversations to be had
Mm-hmm.
that is so different from if you were just starting a family afresh. So
Mm-hmm.
if I go back to your question, what I have to just paint this picture, right? So people that are not in this sort of families can understand why it's such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And even people that are in it will have a bit more clarity as to why it's different. So if we go back to this question as to what's at play here, right? Is it the emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? If or in fact, just ask me that question again. I want to just speak to it specifically. So what are you wanting to find out? Is it the emotions at play or is it
What stands out to you the most? Is it the financial decision or the emotional message behind it? So, is it the man choosing to only send his biological son to school, or is the emotion saying, I choose my biological son over my stepson?
exactly? So is it the emotions at play or is it the
Or,
financial decisions at play?
yes.
Okay, I wanted to be sure I was getting that right. So what stands out to me is not only, I mean, it's a mixture of both, right? Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
it's the blended family, if I can use the word, is a bit more messier than first families because of all the unique dynamics at play. So here we cannot deny that there are two dynamics at play that are huge. The
Mm-hmm.
emotional dynamics and the financial dynamics. Because of course it's a thing. I can't just say, oh, emotions are at play. Why is he being sentimental? Is he not his child? Why won't he pay? This I can't ignore that the man is also saying, I don't have enough money to pay for private school for these two children. So we have to appreciate that there are two dynamics at play. The emotional dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
because the bio mom too is in the middle. I mean, these are her two children, right? You want the best for both. You want children to be raised as much as possible in an equal way. So there's the heavy emotional dynamics at play, but there's also a heavy financial dynamics at play.
Mm-hmm.
But what stands out for me in all is the couple.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever makes these dynamics easier to deal with and easier to have a resolve, a resolution is both of you. Because the constants that you bring to any relationship you have is you.
Mm-hmm.
And when I mean you, it's a totality of who you are. So the sort of conversations you have, where are you emotionally as a person? Your level of awareness, how you approach things, how grounded you are, how emotionally regulated you are. Everything comes in. So it's the couple. Because if I hear them talk about this, it will tell me a great deal as to how they're approaching this. How is the man approaching it? Because let's go back to the basics. When he decided to marry that woman, he knew she was a single mom.
Definitely.
She didn't hide her child, which again
No.
some people do, and spring it up and you halfway through the marriage. That is
True.
just sit on a
True.
whole different level, a whole different conversation altogether. But she was upfront and say, I have this child. You knew she had this son, and you accepted her with the son. You married her with the son.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a commitment, not just to her, but to her and that child.
Mm-hmm.
And then you took up the role of stepdad. You decided to play a part. Now, when she decided to marry you too, she knew what she was coming into, that you people are coming to form something together. And these are where, there are certain conversations that are supposed to be had even before you get into this marriage, knowing that the dynamics are very different from a primary family.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I said it's the couple involved. When you sit down to talk about these things, what's the tone? Because they say communication is what, 7% verbal, 8% verbal, is 55% body language, and now 38% tonality. What's the tone? Because some people will say, "Oh, she's being entitled. How would she expect that the man should pay for the son's that her son's school fees? After all, he has his own biological son. Where is the boy's father?"
Mm-hmm.
And some people will say, "Oh no, but wait a minute. If it was her that had the money, and it was his son and she was stepmom and she made that decision, how will he feel?
Yes.
So that's why I
Witch.
say that
Wicked mom. I said witch. Wicked
exactly. They'll say
mother.
wicked step, not even just wicked stepmother.
Wicked
You know, no thanks
stepmother.
to Disney, there's the wicked stepmother stereotype already.
Yes, it was a trope back
You
in the
know,
day in Nollywood. It was
yes,
a movie
wicked
trope.
stepmother. They see
Yes.
you because she has money. She now made sure that the man's child did not go to school. Her own child went to the best of school. So they will already brand her.
Yeah.
People will not be quick to say, oh, but she doesn't have enough money to train her child in private school and his child in private school. She has to look after her. They will say, no, wicked stepmother. If you don't have enough money to take both of them to private school, both of them should go to the same type of school.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't blame a father too for wanting the best for his biological child.
Mm-hmm.
However, he has to be aware that when he took over this woman as a partner, as a wife, and
Mm-hmm.
decided to do life together, he also committed to take over the son. But that's
So,
why I said that it's the dynamics at play, and the two people involved that need to sit down and be having this conversation because it's a whole lot. Sorry, I'll let you.
no, no, no. This, you triggered something that crossed my mind. I think conversations that couples aren't having enough or should start having is, if you're to end up with someone who is a single mom or a single dad, do you legally adopt that child? Because some people worry that if they spend all these resources, time, energy, finances, and then the father walks in the future or the mother walks in the future, that they are relegated to the background. I have actually read a story where the stepdad was there for the girl and everything, and on the wedding day, it was her biological father that walked the girl. Meanwhile, the stepfather was the one that was paying for the wedding. And the
Mm,
stepfather didn't have any say, nothing. And people were like, oh, just let it go. It's an emotional thing, and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, you know what? If you people are saying it's emotional, I'm being too emotional. Heck, I'm not gonna pay
mm,
for the wedding anymore. Let the father, the biological father, pay for it because this feels like an insult. So if legally they have that conversation and say, okay, I'm going to adopt the child, even though that's a different conversation, right? Because again, other parent has to relinquish the rights and everything. That may give the step parent more faith
mhm.
in the validity of the parenthood. I don't know how to
Yeah,
phrase
more
it.
faith, more confidence.
Yes,
Make them, nobody likes to have a wasted investment. Make them
yes,
feel like they really have a stake, right?
yes.
And they, because people always say, oh, they want the child to feel they belong. The parent wants to also feel like they belong in the child's life and
Mm-hmm.
they are playing a major role. So that's why I said that it's the couple. What conversations are they having
Mm-hmm.
even before they start this union? Knowing fully well that it's not a regular union, it's a union that there's a child or children already involved before they come together. And
Mm-hmm.
then again, what conversations are they having even as their family continues to expand? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's deeper than even just school fees, right? This one is school fees. There'll be things about will. How did you share things like estates?
How to
And
punish
as
a
the family
child
prosperity
or
enlarges, how do you share things? Exactly,
yeah.
roles and discipline.
Yeah,
Who does
discipline.
what?
Thank you.
Boundaries, right? How involved
Mhm.
is this other ex? Because we talked about the boy's father.
Yeah.
Some men, pride and ego, like I've married you. This child belongs to me now. I adopt. The father is no longer involved, and some fathers too don't want to be involved. We cannot deny the fact that there are absentee fathers,
Yes.
and some fathers that from even when the woman is pregnant, he's not even showing up, right?
Mhm.
So there's even a case like you mentioned that the girl at her wedding, she said, I don't know who's going to walk me down the aisle because me and my stepfather have such a great relationship.
Mhm.
But me and my dad, her dad was still present. So she
Mhm.
felt caught between the two. Oh my gosh, who's going to walk me down the aisle? I was like, let the two of them walk. You stay in the middle. You're a product
True.
of two men. That's what it is. It's sad that it did not work out with you and your mother and your bio dad,
Mhm.
but he was still present, chose to be present, still played a part. But your
Mhm.
stepdad still did not feel he was any less of a father and still played the role. So you're
Mhm.
actually blessed to have had two active men
In
in
your
your life.
life.
And
Yeah.
you're blessed for it and rich for it and more grounded for it. So be in the middle and let of them. I mean, we're coming to times everybody's challenging norms, right? Who says it's one person that has to walk you down the aisle?
Sure.
You'll be in the middle, two men walk you down the aisle, you smile, they hold your hands because that's a product of who you are. And I think that
Sure.
that's a very rich family because they've been able to sort of understand that the family is expanded, right? The biological father is involved, the stepfather is involved, because some biological fathers too will not give up their presence in their child's life. So,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, in this case, we go back to the scenario you painted. If the biological father is wealthy and says, yes, it didn't work out with me and you, but my child will go to private school, so I will pay. Even
Mm-hmm.
if the stepfather cannot afford it, they need to have the conversation to say, are we going to deprive the child of this education because he's no longer my partner? Because at the end of the day, you have to think of what's best for this child, and you're setting this child up for a brighter future. That's what you want. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
set pride and ego apart and decide how involved do we want our exes, right? And also, you have a child that two of you have raised. It might even make it easier depending on his financial situation that, okay, the boy's father will pay for private. We should concentrate on paying for private for our own biological child. However, we have to do it in such a way that the children don't start feeling that they are different because it's also important that as children, they both feel like they belong because they are siblings. And you
Yes.
don't want to start to nurture sibling rivalry early in
Sure.
the day in that
Sure.
union. So it's a very big picture and there are so many dynamics at play. So I'll rest it here.
I curated questions for you, but as
Yes.
you talk, I also remember key things of stuff that I've seen. There's a movie that I watched on Netflix. I don't remember the movie, but I think it's a Tyler Perry movie. It was this guy who fell in love with a single mother of three girls. And I think they were the two older ones were already teenage girls, and then the younger one was probably in elementary or yeah. So he took time to woo her and everything. She ended up believing that, his love was genuine and they got married and things like that. While being married, she fell ill. She had cancer.
Oh, wow.
He actually stayed with her.
Mhm.
At first, the girls fought him, but then they realized that he was genuine. So, they appreciated the relationship, the role he played as a father, because they had an absentee father.
Mm.
Their actual biological father would make promises to come, but never would show up and things like that. So he placed the role. And he also had scenarios where when the father comes once and then there's like this whole celebration thing, and he's like, that you feel that way. Anyway, the wife now has cancer. He nurses her through the cancer. She gets well. And on her first day back to her job, because she is a police officer, she gets killed at a robbery.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So I think they were married like maybe 2, 3 years. I don't remember. It wasn't like a new marriage, more or less. The love was still flying and everything. And you've gone through this very traumatic experience, which has bonded you more. The girls, your love, everything. You're even thinking of renewing your vows, all those sweet, lovey, lovey things. And then that kind of thing happens. He actually stayed in the children's life. So their absentee father ended up coming because, he didn't adopt the children, but he was present in their life. So when the father came, the girls were crying, but they're like, he's the legal guardian. He can't do anything. There was no legal paper, stuff like that. What he ended up doing was he took a job outside state, even though he was absent from their lives. The job was able to pay him enough for him to still pay their tuition up until graduation
That's
because
the
he knew
biological
that,
father
no,
now, or the
the
stepfather.
stepfather, because he knew that the absentee father didn't have anything tangible in
Okay.
terms of, source of income or work. So
Okay.
he's like, I will sacrifice my time. I would make time to come, but I'll sacrifice my time and get this job. And that job, the role had actually come when he had just gotten married, but he
Okay.
didn't tell the wife. He put it aside because they were going through the whole cancer and everything. Do you understand? But then when the accident happened, no, when the shooting happened and then she died, he then called back and took the role.
Mhm.
So he was with them up until the eldest got married. And on the wedding day, he actually walked her down the aisle because To the girls, he was their father, and their main father was actually jealous. But then he appreciated the effort that the stepfather did. And that's another context bringing in because everyone wants to believe that in the ideal world, people will be healthy, people will be healed,
Mm,
people will be alive to spend the time. But if you marry someone who is a single parent and then they die,
mhm.
what then happens to the child and your
Exactly.
relationship?
Yeah.
That was what came to my mind when you were talking. And those are the
Yeah.
conversations that couples should have as well, even though it's, macabre. Nobody wants to have those conversations. But yeah, I wanted to bring that.
That's real life, and that's why the truth is marriage is not for children. Blended families is not even for younger children. Like what I mean is it's not even an age thing, right? It's
Mhm,
emotional maturity, it's being able to have tough conversations, it's being mature enough to know that see it's beyond just you, right? There are children involved, there are other people involved, and being able to accept it and
mhm.
being able to get help and therapy when
True.
you need it because life happens, like you rightly said, life happens. So you
Mhm,
must have this conversation. So like I'm a blended family coach, right? And I have clients and it's interesting because I have some clients who are already in the family and trying to make sense of it and trying to bond and trying to deal with all the conflict and chaos and everything.
mhm,
But I have a couple of clients who have not even gotten in, are dating somebody that has children and is saying, I want you to tell me the truth. I want to tell you to tell me the sort of things to expect. I
mhm,
want you to tell me what it to be like to be a stepmom. And I really appreciate people like that because they are very aware and they're not lying to themselves. They know that there'll be challenges, they know that it will be different, and they are willing to have those tough conversations before they go in. So, does it solve all the problems? No. But does it make it easier? Yes. Because you're going in with a level of awareness. You're not going in naive, right? Because they always say ignorance is bliss. No, not
not in this
level of
scenario.
ignorance. Exactly. It's good to have an awareness. And some things will still shock you because you're dealing with human beings, right? And there'll still be things that you can only see when you're in that relationship or in that union or actually now living together. However, when you have a certain level of awareness, you're more prepared. You're more prepared, you're more open when those things start to come up. You
Mhm,
know sort of how to handle things when you're seeing them because you are aware. So like in my case, if I use my personal example, I was preparing for marriage, right? But I never thought that you don't prepare to be a stepmom from when you're young. You just prepare for, oh, happily ever after. I want to meet Prince Charming. I want to get married. I want to. So even though I had always been in that space, even from being a young single girl, or very young girl of, coaching, attending, then it was churches. I used to do a lot of those singles and married conferences and all those things. I've always been in those spaces and I've listened to some very powerful women, especially talk about preparing for marriage and things like that. But nothing prepared me for, the dynamics in a blended family or being a stepmom. It was very different. And that's why again I do what I do and that's why I say it found me. Because when I got trusting to it, I had this period of, oh my God, what's going on going on here? But and I almost left. I almost said, I don't know if I can handle this. But when I got to the point where I became committed to make my marriage work, and I said, I love this man, he loves me. We want to make this work. He's not a bad person, it's just the dynamics. It's difficult and it's our
mhm,
reality. But once I made up my mind and that this was our present reality and we have to deal with it, and yes, there are children involved. And I started doing all the trainings myself because I had to get trained. I had to start doing all the trainings, register with Step Family Coaching. I'm a member of Step Family Coaching Academy of America. Like, I started going out reaching for help. And that's when I saw things start to change because I was approaching with a lot more awareness, the tools. I was skilled to be able to operate in these new dynamics, right? And that's why we're able to go from where we were, all that conflict chaos to where we are now. So it's just me saying to people that, sometimes you don't have control over who you fall in love with. I know sometimes packages that you want don't exactly come boxed or wrapped up the way you think they will come. Because I
true.
hear some people say, "Oh, that's why I say don't even marry a single mom. Don't even marry a dad at the house." I mean, it's. I think that's a bit extreme, right?
Mhm,
Because it can be you. What if it's you, the person talking tomorrow? You get married, you hope for the best. It doesn't work. Automatically, you're left with a child. So are you saying nobody else should marry you because it didn't work with you and the first one? So
Even if
it's
it
for
didn't
people
work,
to
what if the
talk.
person died and you're a
Exactly.
widow
There are so
or a
many
widower?
dynamics
Yeah.
to it. you know. So people, it's easy for them to talk when they're not the ones wearing the shoes, right? But
True.
once it happens to them, then they're a lot more forgiving. Oh, keep an open mind. You know?
Yeah.
So that's why it's good to, go in with awareness, have these conversations, know what you're getting into, and then, get help when you need help. Talk to the people that are able to help you navigate this situation or the dynamics.
Seeing as you've had experiences in talking to people who are in these dynamics outside of yourself but counseling them, what are the misconceptions or misunderstandings that people have about building relationships with children that they didn't give birth to?
Oh, I'll tell you. The first one is people just think that the love will be automatic. You just assume that, okay, well, I'm not a bad person. Nobody wants to brand themselves as a bad person. Like, I'm not a bad person. I'll talk from a mom's point of view, right? Okay, I'm not a bad person. I love this man I'm going into this relationship with. That's me assuming that you're going in with the right intentions and right motive, and both of you have
Mhm.
your hearts in the right place, right? So you're like, oh, I'm not a bad person. I love this person I'm going into this relationship with. And because I love the person, it will be easy to love his children. And it will be easy to blend with the children and to be easy to bond. You're forgetting that the man is not his children. The man
No.
is not his children. And you're forgetting that somebody else has been a part of these children's life in terms of raising them. So they are owned by your mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're forgetting that you're not the one that raised these children, whatever age they are. I always say that if they gave you the child at a younger age, maybe they gave you the child as a baby, it's
Mm-hmm.
easier
It
because you've
is.
come into the child's life, yes, when the child has unformed opinions, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
child is actually a blank slate. So it's easier because you're involved in forming that child's life and opinions from day one, and so you can have greater influence
Mm-hmm.
again, depending on how you navigate it, which is why wisdom to navigate these situations are very important. So, if you play a good part, you have a higher chance of forming the child's opinions and you're present from day one. So, the child knows you, warms up, it's easier. Again, like I said, depending on the child's age or the children's age.
Mm-hmm.
But when you come in and the children are already at an age where they are formed opinions, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe somebody has also been brainwashing them about you. And so from day one, you're already the enemy.
Yes. They are there to intentionally sabotage you and the relationship. They don't
Exactly.
want to
So they literally,
change anything. They liked the status quo. They love their mom, but they love their mom for themselves. They don't want any new
exactly.
person. Like, what does
And
mom
even
need a
if it did
man
not
for or
work
something?
work between their mom and their dad, and even if they have lived with only their dad for a while, they might also have loved the dynamics of just living with their dad. So who are you that is coming into this
True.
picture? So
True.
sometimes all that resentment being thrown at you, it's not because they're also bad children. It's because they're also navigating a path that is new to them. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that is one thing that as stepmoms really have to be very conscious about because
Sorry, I think that's my own call.
yeah,
Uh,
I think you're
sorry. Yeah, it
moving.
was.
Okay. So I was saying that she's forgetting that these are individuals on their own, and they have a different personality. And also, depending on the stage she gets into their life at, like if they were babies or if they are babies, it's easier because she gets to play a part from a very formative stage of their life, the younger they are.
Mhm.
But the older they are, the more they have their own identity, their own individualism, their own say per se, they know what they want. And the longer they have stayed with, say, the other parent, like their dad, and you're coming in, it's like, who is this? I don't want someone to come and, just rattle
Shake
this
things up.
status quo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that we know. So there's all that dynamics. And again, if their bio mom is very present in their life and whispering things into their ears, it plays up because all that resistance will be thrown at you, depending on, she's already painting you as the villain and all the circumstances surrounding it. So it increases the sort of resistance that you will get. But a
Mhm.
lot of stepmoms don't really prepare for this. They don't understand this. They don't see it coming. And sometimes they start feeling like, they get married and they start feeling like outsiders in their own home.
Mhm.
They start feeling like, do I belong here? This child has been with this man. Am I furniture that just came in to complete complete the household? and they start struggling and things like maybe they are trying to parent too because they are parents, to an extent they are step parents, but they are parents. They're
Mm,
trying to parent, they're trying to love, they're trying to give, they're trying to correct, they're trying to. So things like this can also build resistance, towards them from the child. So we don't really sometimes as stepmoms appreciate how complex this can be, and it's a common misconception I found.
mhm,
However, if the more prepared, and like I said, and the more aware you are, the more you can sort of start to prepare your mind as to, the sort of resistance that you can get, the kind of dynamics that are at play, the age of these children you're going to encounter, or you're going to merge with,
mhm,
and the dynamics at play, is their mom there, things like that. And again, sometimes it's not even just the mom. Sometimes there are other family members, in-laws. I've had issues of where, the wife's, the ex-wife's mom still
mhm.
wants to margin and be like, oh, this is my grandchild after all. Yes, it's her grandchild, but there's a new woman in the house and you have to honor that. So,
Yeah,
there are still also that ex-in-law interference in your own home. But again, they have a right because it's their grandchild, right? But how is it handled? And this is where conversations around boundaries, start
mhm.
to come in. So these are all the things that a lot of times stepmoms are not prepared for. And these are the dynamics that can make it difficult.
So you pointed more on stepmoms. Does it
Yeah.
mean that the men are easier to adapt in blended families?
Well, I talked about stepmoms because, like I said, that's my lived experience. And I like to talk from a place of experience because for me, I can relate. And a lot of my clients are stepmoms too, because
Okay.
however, I also deal with families because the truth is that a lot of times we also invite the men to come into the conversation because can two
Mm,
work together unless they agree, like the Bible says. So there's a part the other partner plays because it's a
mhm.
family. The woman can't carry it alone. So he needs to come into the conversation, right? But what I find out is a lot of times when things are not actually going well, it's the women that are very quick to go and look for help.
True. That's true.
Yeah, and women are more open to coaching and counseling and, oh, please come and help me. I need help because they really want to make it work. I'm not saying that men don't want to make their marriages work, but I think you find men more when it comes to if it's a class on finance or conversation about finance, like, please, yes, tell me how to make money, like family, they're like, oh,
True.
please, this dynamics. So you find a lot of men that will be like, please, you're their mother, you're the adult here, get on with it. They just assume that. And so when men tell their wives, like, he's just telling me get on with it, but he's not saying that this child is resisting me and he's the
Mhm,
father, he's the one that has the role to play in terms of shaping things. He's just telling me get on with it. I'm trying to get on with it, but I'm struggling. So I've had those conversations with couples. But if we say the reverse, the role is reversed and it's the stepfather, right? And trying to get along, the same thing can happen because it's still the same human dynamics. The child that has lived with the mother, all this while the new man comes on the block is like, why do you even need a man to start with? Because it happens even in our culture. A lot of times when a man dies, the children don't even expect that their mother should be seeing anybody else,
true.
because they're like, you had a good relationship with him. Yes, die, but you're not even so young.
Yeah.
Why do you want to
Honor
look for?
him.
Yeah,
Honor
yeah,
his memory.
exactly. And then they fail to see that this is still a woman that has needs, and especially
True.
depending on the age of her life when she became a widow. This is
Yeah.
still a woman that has needs, but the children are more resistant to, oh, I don't have another father figure, I don't want to have a
Yeah.
stepdad. But if she's strong enough to make that decision for herself and she moves on, the children will also resist that man. Like, are you going to say that we'll have another person we will call daddy? And sometimes it's like, okay, when you talk about inheritance, that's why I say things like that, estates have to be
Mhm,
discussed because the children will be like, are you now going to take everything that our father owned and give this new man? What are you trying to say? And again, with the stepdad too, if the children are younger and even when they accept him, there's this resistance of, how do I discipline them? What part do I play? And, where do I draw the line? And if their own father is around, like the scenario we discussed at first, what part do I play and what part does he play? So it's a very complex mix. And that's why I say that, people need to have these conversations, people need to get help, people need to involve the right people, not just open your door to family, friends in the name of counseling and people that don't
mhm.
even understand it, people that have never even lived it to come and speak into it because they feel that they are older or they are pastors or they are counselors so they can speak into it. Even if as a coach and a counselor, I tell you, if you do not really understand the blended family dynamics, it's a difficult field to speak into.
Yeah. So, from a man's perspective, what would you say? is a warning sign that tells a blended family is operating as two separate teams instead of one family.
Okay, so not even from a man's perspective, from a couple's perspective, right?
Okay.
Because, yes, because if you're in that union, whether as a man or as a woman, and
Mm-hmm.
again, you're having these conversations that we know that you need to have,
Mm-hmm.
you can tell that you're not working as a team with the way you're approaching the conversation. So, for instance, if in that union that's supposed to be a union, a family, blended,
Mm-hmm.
yes, but you're now a family, and that's why I sort of like blended as opposed to step. I sort of feel the word step creates some sort of division. I feel
Yes.
blended,
Yeah.
yes, it's like when you blend juice together like smoothie, like it's almost literally like it becomes one. It's more homogeneous. So that's
Yeah.
why I like the word blended, right? And I like to be identified as a blended family coach as opposed to a stepmom coach or a step family coach. I like the word blended. So if the idea is to blend,
Mm-hmm.
right, you want to bond. That's what it says. You don't want to just merge. There was a talk I gave on going from blending to bonding.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's why I like to say that I like to take blended families from blending to bonding and to go from just merging into actually becoming a tribe. So
Okay.
it's not just, okay, we've unified households, two houses have moved into one to become one house or one family. It's how can we unify things like culture,
True.
traditions,
Yeah.
belonging.
Mm-hmm.
So you find that you will tell yourself the truth, or you find that you're operating separately as opposed to as a team when you look at the sort of words you're using. Is it yours and mine? Like if again we go to that
Yeah.
scenario you said at the beginning, that was a great example. I could already see that they were not united because
Mm-hmm.
oh your son,
Mm-hmm.
his father, our child. So you're already showing there's division. You're not having a unified conversation.
Mm-hmm.
There is no agreement as to what's the level of involvement of me as a stepdad, his bio dad, so and because of that conversation hasn't been had, things like this will come up. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, they are going to have even more difficult conversations because they are not really addressing the main issues. So you can already tell that you're not united. You can tell there's division brewing, which will only
Mm-hmm.
get worse if you don't have those tough conversations because the words you're using, his, yours,
Mm-hmm.
ours, those are
True.
words of division, not words of unity. Um, um, when you're not having conversations that want to make you bond when you're not intentionally creating new family traditions. So, for instance, Christmas now, okay,
Yeah.
Christmas tradition before was he used to go to his dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you used to be on your own. But we're trying to bond as a family. Can we change this tradition to say Christmas, we do it as a family, and
Mm-hmm.
then Boxing Day 26th, he goes to his dad? Or
Mm-hmm.
24th, he goes to his dad? Or do we change what Christmas is to us as a family? And we do Christmas on the 26th. We choose our own Christmas day. Because if his dad is still playing such a huge role and his father says, I will spend Christmas with my son, and you want to honor it as a couple, you see, okay, he's living with us, but see, we have to give his father some rights too. So go spend Christmas with your dad, even maybe the whole Christmas week.
Mm-hmm.
Then we move our Christmas to after Christmas. Nobody says that your Christmas must be 25th because everybody else does Christmas. You start to be intentional about creating your own family traditions. And that was something we had to do as a family, right? We had to, when the children go to their mom, for certain family holidays, when do they stay with us? What do we initiate as our own family tradition? So we start creating traditions around when do we exchange gifts, at Christmas? When do we have our own Christmas dinners to be able to accommodate their mom because she's still a huge part of their life? So these are the conversations that show that there's unity and
Mm-hmm.
you're honoring the part that the other person is playing in their children's life as opposed to creating division and continuing to divide the family rather than actually bond your blended family.
Being a life coach, can you actually speak on being chosen to be such a powerful human desire?
Oh, wow. Indeed. Because we were not created to be in isolation, right? We were created for community. We're created for love. In fact, love is one of the strongest human needs. People kill for love.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of issues people have, things like attachment styles, which is the way people form bonds with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's from their nurturing. How did they feel they belonged where they were coming from? Did they feel loved? Did they feel included? Right? So even speaking into this as a coach, and even again bringing it to blended families, it's important that we are aware that it's a very strong human need, and the way you make you and your partner feel is very important in that relationship, as well as the children that are coming, your bio children and your stepchildren,
Mm-hmm.
because we cannot deny that love is a basic human need, and nobody wants to feel like they're tolerated, right? Everybody wants to feel like they're appreciated, and some children keep playing out just to feel like they're loved.
True.
That's why some situations people have, or issues people have, or character defaults people have as adults, it's
Yeah.
just because of they missed it, that feeling of
Yeah.
belonging, oneness, love as children.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very belonging, and that sense of love is very fundamental in everybody's life, even whether you're an adult, whether you're a child, whether you're in a blended family, whether you're in a primary family, whether you're a stepchild, whether and the more complex the family dynamics, the more you even have the need for it.
True. This reminds me of the courses and the early childcare trainings that they make us undergo. They tell you how to encourage positive attention versus negative attention for a child. So, reinforcing things like if a child did something bad, let's say they did not clean up, and then they start crying, and because they start crying you let it sleep. I'm trying to look for no that I don't think that example actually buttresses well, but let's say they did something wrong, right? And you've warned them, then they've now done it again, and then they start screaming. You run in because they are screaming. They believe that, oh, every time I scream, this is what's going to happen. Or if you take the iPad from them and say screen time has ended, and then, like I said, they start screaming and kicking. And it's like, oh, okay, okay, because I don't want you to scream and kick here.
Mhm.
Is reinforcing negative, you know, and they tell you to mind how you do that. So the same thing in schools, when children see other peers that do certain things that make the teachers focus on them. So let's say they're not following directions properly. Example, nap
Yeah.
time. Other children are napping, but this child doesn't want to nap. They say, okay, even if you don't want to nap, just lie down on your bed and be quiet. But then the child starts hitting the floor. And because the teacher is always going to the child and say, stop hitting the floor. Why don't you turn this way? Why don't other children that are awake, that are being quiet, are not getting the same attention? Say, oh, okay, if this child is getting this attention, if I do this, I will get the attention.
Yeah.
And then they now do
Hmm.
the negative action to get the attention. And then you reinforce it by then going and telling them, oh no. So that's it. And like you said, it grows to when they're adults if it's not redirected. So
Yeah.
that's also coming from, having the desire and wanting someone to value you.
Yeah.
I just found that fascinating that you brought that up, but I wanted to add that to the
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah. I think it's that's why parenting, you have to be very intentional, right? It's parenting is one of the most difficult things you will ever do. Because it requires a whole new level of intentionality. And
Yes.
unfortunately, a lot of adults are not even aware. And a lot of adults just feel like, you know what, we'll get by. So even when you tell people go and do parenting classes, they're like, why do I need parenting classes? And they are feeling to see that they are not raising children in the times that they were raised in. So things that were not available to them are becoming more and more available to these children. And the environment that they grew up in is very different from the environment these children are growing up in. The
Mm-hmm.
things these children are exposed to is very different from what they were exposed to. Even the family dynamics is getting more and more different, because we see that blended families are increasing in number. Unlike before that, no matter how bad things were, some parents were like, there was this need to just keep it together, because it
Yeah.
was almost a taboo to sort of
Separate
leave
all
and
the
go
way.
and
Yeah.
exactly go and start again. So
You
we
left
need
your
to be more
husband? Sorry.
exactly, yeah. So we need to be more intentional as parents, that times are changing. These children are saddled with different things. We need to be
Mhm.
very intentional, and we need to be equipped
Yeah.
for
And they
time.
also talk to each other in school. Like they
Mhm.
have friends, they know whose friends' parents are divorced. and
Yes.
whose parents are still together. In fact,
Yeah.
sometimes when you watch movies, you see there's a bragging right to say, oh, my parents are still together, or
Yeah.
everybody's, so they also talk amongst themselves and they know. But yeah, I feel you. So, can families be built through commitment and consistency, or does biology always carry a different weight? Like, say, for instance, an absentee father,
Mm-hmm.
the stepfather has been there consistently, and then when you're in your 20s or 30s, the absentee father comes in and suddenly, the child is like, oh, trying to, or even when a child was adopted and the adopted parents were there all through, and then the child is an adult and now decides to go look for the biological parents, regardless of whether the biological parents want them or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does biology carry a different weight, or is, commitment, consistency, and nurturing? What are your thoughts?
Oh, definitely. Biology carries weight. You can't rule that out.
Ah.
Biology carries weight because the truth is, there's this sentiment, right? Even when people say, "Oh, that's my mother," that's my father. It's a huge thing. Biology certainly carries a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate that even when the parents, biological parents, are toxic, they are still the parents.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's what the children are saddled with. That sentiment that these are my parents,
Mm-hmm.
even though they are toxic, but biology carries weight. And that's why, as parents, we must do the work. We must be intentional to know that biology carries weight. We are responsible. We brought this child to life. Some children will tell you, I didn't ask for you to bring me here. You brought me here, right? You didn't even ask me before you brought me here.
Yeah.
So it's a whole lot of responsibility. Biology carries weight. Parents need to rise up to the fact that biology carries weight. You brought this child here. You can't just decide to be absent, right? Whether it worked out with you and the mother, the partner, the girlfriend, whatever, or not, you have to be conscious biology carries weight.
Mm-hmm.
However, in building a family, and saying that, okay, people have moved on, the other party has decided not to be present, or was never even present in this child's life. Like some people give birth and give up the child from the beginning. So there are cases of adoption, there are
Yeah.
cases of abandonment, there are cases of just being absent, well, we had this child, but we're not together, and I don't want to show up. I
True.
don't want to show up, and you can't force me to show up, right? So
Yeah.
there are cases like that. So I know abroad, in most of the Western cultures, they will even track you down to where you work and make sure you're paying some form of child support.
Yes.
So, but that's just the money, right? But they're making you know that there's biology, and because you're biologically responsible, you will pay something, no matter how little you will pay towards the upkeep of this child. However, nobody can force you to love that child. That is the truth. And that's where the child is now saddled with all that emotions of my biological father doesn't want me, or my biological mother doesn't want me, and then the step parent is trying to, the step parent is trying to step in and fill the gap. So it's a mixture of both. We cannot really tell that biology does carry weight, and a very heavy weight at that. And the more present a biological parent is involved in a child's life, the better for the child, and the more, it's easier to navigate life's challenges and to be, a more rounded human being, right? Because, like I said earlier, it affects your attachment styles in the future. It even affects your ability to bond, even in your own family. Because if you're abandoned as a child, and you're trying to date, you will always, it will show up, because, and your partner is wondering, what, I'm showing him love, I'm showing him care, why can't he bond? But he's unable to, because he's dealing with, issues with attachment because of abandonment as a child. So
Mhm.
biology carries weight. Biological parents have to be aware that whatever they are doing will influence their child, either positively or negatively. However, we're all lucky that in life gives us second chances, right? And even if it doesn't work out the first time, your story can still be beautiful. And
Mhm.
that's part of my lived experience, that even though, I'm in a blended family, I'm with stepchildren, we have something beautiful.
Mhm.
But did it come easy? No, we worked at it. And that's where building also has weight.
Mhm.
That's where nurturing has weight. That's where consistency has weight. So that's where you, as the adult, have to do the work, because you cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot give what you don't have. So that's where you have to rise up to say, okay, I'm now in this thing. It didn't work out with me and maybe this child's biological parent, mother or father, or you didn't work out with my partner and this other person, but I'm now a stepmom, or I'm now a stepdad, or I'm now both a stepmom and a bio mom, I have to step up. I have to do the work. I have to heal. The trauma might not have been my fault, but healing is my responsibility, especially as an adult. And I have to heal both for myself, my new partner, this relationship I decided to go into, and this child I decided to take on. So that again borders on finding your own healing, finding your own joy, being committed to this new relationship, being consistent to build. So again, that's where this dynamics is complex because you recognize that the biology and the biological parent plays a part, but you also appreciate that part that you play and what you bring to the table as a step parent. And we know that the ultimate goal is a happy family, right? That's what everybody wants. You want love, you want belonging, you want peace, you want unity. And I would assume that's why you form a new bond in the first place. Nobody comes out from frying pans, enter fire. like we our people will see. Nobody wants to go from, worse to worse.
Yeah.
You come out from
What's the
something
worst?
to worse time, exactly. You come out from something that wasn't good because you want a chance at making it better, both for yourself and that child. So we have to all be intentional and we have to be aware and we have to come into it with this sense of responsibility that this is something that's been given to me. And even though I'm not the biological parent, there's still a place for the work I have to do to make
Yeah.
it work.
There's an angle that I feel like we haven't really touched on, and is the burden or the weight that is on the child. Let me give you
Mm.
an example. I have a friend who is a single mom. Her child should be entering early teens, and she walked out of her marriage because the husband was violent. So she endured domestic violence. They both live in the same country, different states, the same country. And after she walked out, for, if I'm not exaggerating, for close to 7 years, the ex-husband has never made the trip to come visit the child.
Wow.
He only calls on WhatsApp, video call. At one point, she even stalked him because she's like, it's not like you're in a different continent. We're in the same country. How do you value your child that you do not make the
Mm.
effort for you to come visit? So then she tells the child that if when you become an adult and you go and find this man, I will disown you. And she told me this and she said, Ebele, I mean every word of what I'm saying. And she told me this maybe like a year or two ago. But as I said, the child is entering he's not 12 yet, but like, within that age range. And when she left, the child was probably maybe like 4. Like
Mm.
time has sharp passed. And the
Yeah.
father has been very absent because I'm aware that her family members are the ones that have taken to paying school fees and helping when things were rough for her and trying to find like a job and getting stable and things like that. So that one self is a 0-0. So there's
Mm.
that pain, and the boy is old enough to see the hurt that the father has done to the mother, and also that the father is absent. But then he's burying his own desire to connect, because you can't tell me, like you said, biology, there's a weight in that. He's
Yeah.
also burying the weight of, or the want of connecting with the father when he's old enough, because he does not want to step out of the promise he made to his mom. So there's that burden of,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of things. It's not even just that. There's the case of the boy who the father died, there are 3 siblings, and then the mother remarried and forced the boy to take the stepfather's surname,
Mhm.
and he fought it. He didn't want it. They put the surname on him, but immediately he became of age, he changed the surname. So there are certain burdens that parents put on the child when they enter this blended family, that children also fight, that they feel the parents don't see the emotional aspect of that. So I feel like we've not talked on that. I wanted to hear your opinion on that aspect.
All right, so thank you for that question. And yes, 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 yes. It just follows up from the last conversation we had, which is that, biology bears weight, right? So And sometimes adults act irresponsibly and don't see, or they're selfish, or they're just focused on themselves, that they're not seeing the damage that this is having on their children. But again, too, we know that there are things like accidental parents, right? They did not plan to be parents, so sometimes, yeah, so sometimes it just happens on them. And some people don't know how to respond. So some people, human response, some people is fight, some people's flight, some people is fear, some people is fun. So some people, if it happens, their first response is just run away. So you hear of cases of the father will just leave the mother and run away because he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know how to deal with it. And it's worse if they are not married because, yes, we did this together, you're pregnant, I will disappear. Like
Yeah,
change whole states, run away.
sure.
Knowing fully well that that woman cannot run away. But run away with it. How will you run away from a child in your womb, right?
I mean, there are terrible moms that have done that, but that's a different
No,
conversation.
but you can't even run away till you have the baby. You can't run
Yeah,
away
that's
from
true.
you. You
That,
will
that
have to
is
bet
true.
that baby. So for 9 months, you can't be an absentee. You will have to bet that baby. But
True.
then the abandonment now comes maybe after having the baby. Like, I don't want. They will run away, take and they go, or they are there but they are absent, right? They are present
Yeah.
but they're
They
absent.
are checked out.
Yeah, exactly. So there are even some fathers that are there, but they are not there. They are still
True.
absentee fathers, even though they are in a marriage. And
Mm-hmm.
then there are some fathers that are both physically, emotionally, every financially absent. And maybe because the marriage did not work, they just had the excuse. It did not work. They just disappear, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in any scenario, it's not the responsible thing to do because you're responsible for a child that did not beg you to bring them into this world, but you did. So if you're a responsible adult, even if it's a difficult place to be, you don't know how to handle it, you go and get help. You go and meet people and say, oh, this is this, how can you help me? Or you come together and say, can we give this child up for adoption so that somebody that is better able to deal with, to manage this child can manage the child. So there are so many ways of dealing with it, but human beings will be human beings, right? And people will do what they know to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, you find that hurt people will hurt people. So if you even go and check that person, you might find out that maybe they're also dealing with abandonment issues. Maybe their own father abandoned them, or they're not in a good place themselves. There are things they're dealing with. That's why I said you can't pour from an empty cup.
True.
There are things they're probably dealing with that makes them unable to deal with this child at this time. They just don't have the capacity, right? So they just say, you know what, I will just not be present. But does it have an impact on the child? Definitely it does, because like rightly said, we discussed that biology bears weight. So this child is carrying the burden of this feeling of abandonment, and like that's why I said earlier that that's where issues with attachment styles start to show up. In fact, statistics show that a lot of children in blended families or children that have been abandoned struggle even in their schoolwork.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, they struggle in their schoolwork because this child feels like I don't belong here. I don't feel loved. My mother has moved on. She's with this partner. I don't feel love. I don't feel accepted. My own father, where is he? Which is why I say it's important to know that as much as possible, the person is the child's biological father wants to be involved. Let them be involved because it helps the child.
Mm-hmm.
And you all know how to work it out as adults, and start to build new family traditions that both honors the tradition he knew as a child or he knows as a child that makes him feel safe, but another tradition that makes him feel he belongs. So children bear a lot of these weights. In fact, a lot of times I tell people, the parents will be fine. Adults somehow will be okay because you're not a child, you're not as vulnerable, you're not as exposed. To a large extent, formed. You might
Mm-hmm.
still have your own trauma you're dealing with, and hurt people, which is probably why you're passing on that hurt that you have to deal. That's why I say that the trauma might not be your fault, but healing is your responsibility as an adult. So
True.
when you heal as an adult, it's easier for you to help that child deal with whatever they are going through because you're coming from a good place yourself, and you're coming from a whole place, and you're coming from a healed place. So children carry so many weights, and some of the adults involved with them, I cannot even see it because they are dealing with their own demons. So
Mm-hmm.
they are not even able to see. But that's where so many other bodies like charities and governments and others start to come in to try and nurture these children. So a lot of teachers now are, trained, especially in developed societies, that if you see a child struggling in class, draw that child close and find out why. So
Mm-hmm.
some teachers are the ones picking up that, oh, this child seems to be struggling, and maybe it's what is happening at home. Do
Mm-hmm.
they need a bit more counseling in school? Do they need a bit more nurture? And you will
Mm-hmm.
hear even some celebrities now that will tell you, I really am grateful for my primary school teacher. I'm
Yeah.
grateful for my, college tutor that saw I was struggling and drew me close
Mm-hmm.
and believed in me. So children bear a lot of the weight of this fallout that adults have. The
Mm-hmm.
adults somehow will be okay. The children struggle. Some end up okay because luckily there are other adults that intervene early enough to help them through that struggle. Some children never really come out okay. And this plays out in the society
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what we see, and some people just perpetuate that hurt. Some people go out and become bullies. Some people go out and usually start being violent. They're taking out that lack of sense of belonging, that lack of sense of love they did not feel. Some
Mm-hmm.
people become narcissists. There are so many ways it shows up. Some people, get their own partners and abuse them. Some people have their own children and abandon them. Some people get on drugs, alcohol as a way to cope. So it plays out when these children, as they grow up and even as adults, and it plays up in a lot of the ills we see in society today, which is why even, governments and charities and other bodies are beginning to step in because the family is the most important unit of society.
Yes.
When the children are not nurtured properly and when things break down, it has a ripple effect in society. And that's why, like I said, what we do is so important. That even though it's the first families broke down, the primary families broke down, people can still have something beautiful. People can still nurture very healthy, whole, and beautiful children,
Mm-hmm.
which is the whole essence, whether it's a primary family, whether it's a blended family. The whole essence at at the end of the day is that we all want to be whole individuals that feel supported, feel loved, even as adults, and raise children that are in a healthy environment. And talking about the child that you said, oh, they forced, a new name on the child and all, that's why you should have these conversations. How does the child feel? And chances are, if that child felt accepted by this new father, felt loved in this new relationship, he might not even have a problem with the new name. Chances are that if it was communicated well and he felt loved, he wouldn't be like, why don't it might make him feel more accepted and more loved changing the name. There are people, there are
Um,
children.
no, I was just gonna say from the story, he had a good relationship with his stepfather, but his dad died, so he felt like he was losing his self of like
His
they
identity.
compounded the father's name and the stepfather's name. So he felt like the father was
Okay.
partially being erased. And
Yeah.
now he didn't
Yeah.
want that.
He
So
didn't want.
he had a
Yeah.
good relationship with the stepfather.
Stepfather.
But
Yeah.
my perspective was that was how he felt
Yeah.
because he said his younger siblings, the girls, were fine with it, but he wasn't fine
Yeah.
with it. And he was
Yeah.
older one close to it being 18. And he kept, because he
Mhm.
was 17, he kept telling them no, no, but nobody listened to him.
Yeah.
And once he was, I think, 18 or 21, he changed it. And
Yeah.
then the
Yeah.
stepfather was like, and then his mother was like, "You're not appreciative. You're an a-hole.
Yeah.
Someone has,
Yeah.
poured into you. This is how you repay the
Yeah.
person, yada,
Yeah.
yada, yada, yada." And he's like, so he comes to ask, am I actually an a-hole for this? Because,
Mhm.
so yeah.
Yeah, so again, they are very complex dynamics because
Yes.
um y- where we come from, our culture, a male child is very important because they believe that that's the person that carries on the family name, the family
Name.
life, and the lineage. And they
Yeah.
believe that if you don't have a male child and you die, then your son literally dies with you.
True.
So, yeah, so if that child is African, I can understand that feeling. Like, if he's an only son, I can understand the feeling like, if you change my name, my father's identity literally dies
And
because
legacy.
nobody carries on, yes, carries on this legacy of his name,
Mm-hmm.
right? The girls might not feel anyhow because they are going to change their names anyway, as most women do. Not even all these days, some will
Mm-hmm.
keep their father's name. So, so I can understand why that child felt that way, and especially if he's a son and depends on the culture he was raised in, because I know that a lot of also Asian cultures too have that, so it depends on the culture he was raised in. So it's very understandable. But okay, I can understand the mother and this stepdad's situation. But again, there are questions, right? Does this stepdad have another child? Like the mother and this new father, are they come this her partner? Are they going to have their own children? So is it a case of having these conversations? And we go back to the tough conversations to have. Is it a
Mm-hmm.
case of, okay, his dad is dead, he's the son, he's carrying on the lineage, he's the oldest. It's his duty as the son, and that's the way he feels. It's a sense of identity. You need to honor it. And let's have our own children that will bear your own name. If it's a girl, if it's a boy, whatever sex, but they will bear your own name. And the daughters, our daughters, the stepdaughter, and this, want to bear your name. Is that enough for you? Is that an okay compromise? And let this boy feel like he's carrying on his father's um, legacy. So, like I said, it can be messy because it's not one size fits all. You can't impose. Remember I said it, that these are individuals with their own personalities and their own understanding of life. You can't impose, but they have a right to, because this is their own life. So these are tough conversations to have, but conversations that need to be had as a family, because at the end of the day, you want unity, you want understanding, you want to foster love, you don't want to bring division.
Wow. What I know, Onyi, is that when I'm ready to be in a blended family, you're the first person I'm running to. Whether I'm flying to you or I'm calling you, you're going to be my best friend. That's all I know. And I'm going to say, for people who are watching this, I'm going to put her details and her social media handle on the description, so you can also reach out to her if you're having these situations or you want to have these conversations. You're in this scenario or you want to enter this scenario. This is the best person that I know and that I'm sharing her with you, because I would have just hit that, but let's not be mean. So, Oni, thank you so, so, so much. You have been wonderful, and I'm so glad that you gave me this time to share with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm glad we did it because, like I said, it's a topic very close to my heart because it's my lived experience and it's something that I made a lot of beautiful, I've had a lot of beautiful stories from. I'm making something really beautiful out of. And it's my wish and my desire for everybody. So, yes, when you're ready. I know you're a bio mom yourself, and I
I
think
I am and a single mom. Thank you so much, Oni. I'm gonna sign you out now, and then I'll sign out on the show. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye bye. Wow. I think wow has become my favorite word now for this show, because every guest that has come on has just been, back to back of awesomeness, and they just keep enriching my brain. I just want to say thank you for staying till the end with us, and I hope that these conversations have added so much value to you. If you're in a blended family and you're looking for how to bond, or if you want to enter a blended family, you're a single mom, you're a widow, you're a widower, like I said, I'm going to share her detail, and then you can also have these conversations and be more aware or be prepared of what expectations to have going into the family that you're going to be building, and let love lead, but also come guns blazing, whatever that means. But thank you so much. Bye bye.